This session is abusing Microsoft Kerberos. As you can read, sorry you guys don't get it. Skip Duckwall and Benjamin Delpy are going to talk about it.
All right, there we go. I'm Skip Duckwall. This is Benjamin Delpy. You can tell us apart. I don't have a French accent, so should be pretty easy. I know it's kind of confusing, so go ahead. So this is Benjamin. He's the author of Mimikatz. Go ahead. We're going to talk about Windows and Active Directory, Mimikatz, the NT hash to a point, Kerberos, pass the hash, pass keys, pass ticket. We're going to talk about the golden ticket too as well. And we're going to have 3 live demos, hopefully. And I also wanted to mention that all of the demos that we're going to do will work from a non-domain joined computer as well. So remember, pass the hash. Yeah, it still works, despite what the KB or Rusinovich might say on Twitter. Just a quick reminder. So a user will type his username and password in. Hashes get calculated in LSASS, and then as part of the process, those hashes will get used for authentication. Pass the hash is simply skipping the typing in the username and password part, putting the hash directly into LSASS, and then authentication will still work because the NTLM protocol uses hashes as password equivalents. It's cool. It still works. However, there are some environments where NTLM might be disabled. There's also a new security feature in some of the newer versions of Windows called Protected Users, which is a group that you can put people in that changes the way that hashes are presented in memory and the authentication they can use. Also, maybe you just don't want to leave a lot of NTLM authentication footprints in the event log as you're doing whatever it is you're doing. So Kerberos is all about keys and tickets. What we'll talk about is a user administrator wants to access CIFS on a Win81 box in the chocolate.local domain. There are 3 sets of keys that are involved, and all of them are in Active Directory, and all of them are derived from a password. The KDC long-term secret key, this is the central trust key for all of Kerberos. It's used to sign and encrypt everything that the KDC/TGS needs access to. There's a client long-term secret key. This is typically a user's password, or it's derived from a user's password, and is used as part of the ASREC to encrypt the session key. And then the target /service, these are typically computer account keys that are used when you request a service ticket, and is used to encrypt the session keys that are provided by the TGS to both the user requesting the session key and to the service that you're requesting it from. So typically the way this works is a user, once again, types in his username and password. Depending on your domain functional level, all the flags you've got set, 1 or multiple different keys will get created in LSASS. The old DES key, RC4, which is essentially the NTLM hash, and the newer AES 128 and 256. Those are used as part of the ASREC to encrypt a timestamp. That timestamp, if it checks out by the KDC, you will receive as part of the AS reply a valid TGT, which you then turn around and present to the TGS to request access to a service. And as part of that, you get the service ticket back, and then you send the service ticket to the service that you're requesting. So pre-authentication, as I mentioned previously, is something that Kerberos 5 added to prevent you from arbitrarily just getting a TGT just by asking for it. You have to prove that you are who you say you are by encrypting a timestamp and that gets validated by the KDC before they send you a TGT. The TGT is encrypted with a key that is shared by all of the other KDCs, TGSs in the domain, namely the Kerb TGT account. And as part of the process, a PAC, or a privileged attribute certificate, gets added that includes authentication data, and this data is encrypted by the KDC key as part of the TGT. In addition, for TGTs, the KDC will sign the ticket, essentially with the exact same hash that just used to encrypt it. TGS tickets will end up using a different key to sign it as part of the validation process. Go ahead. So the Kerb TGT account password /hash only changes by default during a domain functional level change, and only if you switch from an NT5 to an NT6. So if you were going from 2000 or 2003 domain functional level to 2008 or 2012, there would be a Kerb TGT role. And that's because the newer NT6 versions have to calculate an AES key as part of it. However, if you were going from 2008 to 2012, there's no new Kerb TGT hash that gets generated. Also, if you do a bare metal recovery using the restore media, who here actually remembers what they did with that password when they set up the domain 10 years ago? Anybody? Okay, one guy. Or if it's manually changed as part of a compromised recovery. However, that is in various stages of may or may not be supported by Microsoft, depending on which web page you read. And the truth is that in most enterprises, that password hasn't changed in years. I have seen just in the past year a domain that had a Kerb TGT account. If you do a net use Kerb TGT WAC domain, it was last changed in 2005. There's older out there. So the internal format of Kerberos is actually just an ASN1 encoded, so you can use your favorite decoder tool to read through it. The ticket format is documented as far as an RFC, and Microsoft has a spec for the PAC format as well. I'm going to briefly talk about a new feature that we're introducing called overpass to hash. So remember how I said that a timestamp was being encrypted by the user's long-term key, and that's how you demonstrate you have access to the password? Well, you can actually, if you have the NTLM hash from a user, you can then just simply encrypt a timestamp and send it to the KDC, and you've demonstrated the same thing as if you've typed in the password because you have the key that gets used to encrypt the timestamp. And so you can end up with a full working Kerberos TGT for that user without actually having to know the password. And it also works with the AES keys. Okay, so how do we find these keys? The keys are both in Active Directory and in the client LSAS memory. You can find the DES keys. The RC4 key is once again the same as the NT hash. And depending on the functional level, the AES and 256 keys, 128 and 256 keys will also be in memory as well. One of the features that the new protected users group does is it prevents the keys from being kept in the LSAS memory, but they're still available on the DC in memory. The AES keys use the strong PBK DF2, there we go, I always screw that up, hashing algorithm. This is a strong, complex hashing algorithm. If anybody does password cracking, these hashes, NT hashes, usually you can crack in the millions or billions per second on modern hardware. These hashes are tens per second. Unfortunately, these are still used as password equivalents, for example, with the overpass to hash. So you still have a problem if you can recover the key. You can just encrypt a timestamp and away you go. So it's made it harder to recover the original password, but the end result is often the same. Move on.
So now we will speak about overpass the hash. But for this part, you need to have key. So technically, for this key, you can use NTDS extract. This is the tool on Unix to dump NTLM hash. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people here have already used it. But this tool can also dump EES key with the good command line, like you can see on this slide. So if you grab the NTDS DIT file on the system hive of domain controller, you have the key for all accounts on the domain. But you can also make the same online. So if you go on the domain controller with Mimikatz, you can use this particular command line to inject a little code in LSISS to dump NTLM hash. That's not very new, but you can also dump all AES key, also this key, because they are also in memory. It can be funky. But you can also find all this key on the client LSS memory. For this part, you can also use Mimikatz to dump key with secure LSI EK's command. It can also work with minidump, and with this case, so you can find AES key, RC4 key, which is the NTLM hash too. Okay. But when you have all this key, what you can do with that? With Mimikatz, you can now use the secure LSA pass the hash command line to inject NTLM hash, which is exactly the same as RC4 key, in the Kerberos provider. So the pass the hash in Mimikatz can now make pass the hash with NTLM, like old version, but can do overpass the hash with Kerberos provider. It can inject NTLM hash, but also AES key in memory of Kerberos provider. Okay. All of that is very magic for the moment, so it's time for a little demonstration. So here we have a Windows 8.1 version with a domain administrator login. That's crazy, I know. I hope all people can see what I project, the text. And with two commands, so privilege debug is for access the LSS memory, and secure LSA a key. I can tap it. Maybe. Oops, that's not a problem. And secure LSA a key is for dump all key in the memory. It's easy, and you can find easily, the domain administrator hash. Okay, you have all these keys, AES key, RC4 key. This is a lot of version. Once you have this key, once you have this key, you can go to another machine, because we have a NAC machine which is outside the domain, which doesn't have any access to the domain controller. I will copy paste. Okay, access denied to the domain controller because I'm nobody on the domain. But now we will use Mimikatz to access just with this key. Okay. Oops, this is not a good command. Okay, so now I have popped another shell. In this shell, I have no Kerberos tickets this time, because for the moment I have made no access. And now, in this shell, I can access the admin dollar of the domain controller. And this time, in memory, I have Kerberos tickets because I have injected the hash in the Kerberos provider. Just get back to the demonstration. So, as you have maybe heard about it, this is exactly how the Aurato POC works. Because they claim they can change the password of a user without knowing the older password. They exactly do the same. They make overpass the hash. They inject, they authenticate against the KDC with the NTLM hash, and they ask for the service key admin change password. Okay. So now we will speak about pass the ticket, because overpass the hash looks like exactly like pass the hash, because in fact it's exactly the same. This is case in LSISS, but pass the tickets is a little bit different. For pass the tickets, we do exactly the same as for key, but we inject the TGT in LSISS process in the Kerberos provider. So this time we do not ask the KDC for a TGT, but we ask the KDC to give us some TGS that we want for access, share, or other resource. But we can also inject in LSIS process TGS, because TGS is enough to access particular service. But TGS is not enough to obtain multiple other TGS. This is one usage. Okay, again, these times, where we can find this TGT and TGS. As usual, we can find it in LSIS memory. LSIS process is very funky. We can find a lot of data into. And it's very well processed because Microsoft have API to extract this TGT and TGS from memory. But it's limited by default for your own tickets. So you cannot access TGT or TGS for other users, but you can extract your TGT or your TGS. Yeah, one exception, you can only extract your TGT if one administrator have made some registry change to access the TGT. Some Java application need it, so you can find it in real life. Okay. But even a normal user without any administrator rights have enough right to dump his own TGS tickets. So malware can dump all TGS tickets and send it outside. So you have the name of the API of Microsoft, and you can use Mimikatz command to list and pass the tickets with official Microsoft API. It's not a hack. All is documented on Microsoft website. Okay, that's cool. You can extract your own tickets, but if you are at Black Hat, some people here make pen tests. So you want to access other TGT and other TGS. It's not exactly the same. We cannot use API for that, but we can use memory reading of LSISS. With memory reading, we can access all data. And as we can read all the memory, we can access all session key in LSS process. So it's also in Mimikatz. In Mimikatz, you can, with secure LSI tickets /export, you can extract all the tickets that LSS process have in memory, and you can use any of these tickets with Kerberos pass the ticket command. Again, it looks like very magic, so we'll make a little demonstration. Maybe if I can use my mouse. Okay. So, on Windows, Windows. I will just close the session because it will flush all tickets in memory. Oh. And we go back to this session, okay? In this session, we have access, we have seen that we have keys in memory, but maybe we don't have tickets. We have tickets, so we will try to extract all of these tickets. Okay. There is a lot of tickets on this LSS process because the computer account also use tickets to make authentication. So I have a lot of files on my desktop now. I must choose the good one. It will be very difficult with the screen outside, so I will make up. So just for you, I will use the Kirby TGT file of administrator because it looks like a very cool account. So I will copy paste it. outside my VM. Yes, we like. And we go back to the VM. No. Up, and we go back here. So that's cool. So again, we are on the hack machine, and this hack machine have no access to the domain controller because this is a special machine. No admin, no access denied. Okay? No problems. Kerberos pass the ticket. We can even drag and drop the file name. Okay, that's all. We are domain administrator. Thank you, but you will like other things. Because it's pretty old. Okay. So let's go back to the presentation. Yes. No.
All right, so we added this nice little chart here. It's got a lot of information, and we're not going to go over everything right now. We will get the slides posted online after the talk. So there is a lot of really good information in here, and if you have questions on it, you can feel free to hit us up at some point. The one thing I would like to point out is one of the coolest things is we counted the number of times you had to touch a KDC depending on which one of these attacks you're using. And so if you were able to get a TGT and you use a passive ticket, you only have to touch the TGS to get a service ticket. If you seal a service ticket, you can just go directly to the service. And what we're about to talk about, the golden tickets, they behave just like a TGT, so you only have to talk to the the TGS at that point. All right, yep, the golden tickets. So a golden ticket is a homemade ticket that's made with a lot of love and a key. It's not made by the KDC, so you're not beholden to any GPO settings. You can put pretty much whatever you want inside, and magic things happen. And it's smart card independent as well. So a lot of people have focused on the golden ticket feature in Mimikatz with the 10-year lifespan that's been hard-coded. That's not really the most interesting thing about the golden ticket stuff. And you can go change the default. The source code's available. You can go change it from 10 years to whatever you want it to be. The most interesting part is that since we have the Kerb TGT, we can now go through and modify the stuff in the pack, such as group membership, the SID, the username, et cetera, et cetera. Kerberos is stateless. So all of the information that you need to be able to access a service has to be contained inside the TGT, including stuff like whether or not the account is enabled or disabled, whether or not the account is inside or outside of logon hours, whether or not the password's about to expire or the account is expired, if it's a member of any authentication silos, if it's a member of the protected users. This is simply another group that is listed in the pack. So if you have someone in the protected users group that you're attempting to do something with their account, you can simply not include the protected users group and you don't have to worry about it. And group membership, like I mentioned, is also in the pack. This essentially means that everything is client-side enforcement at this point because you're presenting your own version of what account policy you want to enforce when you get service tickets, because you're not supposed to have the TGT, the central key for all trust, or the Kerb TGT, pardon me. So by default, the MIT Kerberos 5 does not have any mechanisms by which the TGS can validate that an account has not disabled or outside of logon hours or anything, because that is supposed to be handled by the TGT. you're not supposed to get a TGT if you're disabled or whatever. So because we're presenting valid TGTs, Microsoft added this is a feature that is in the Microsoft version of Kerberos, where if the ticket is older than 20 minutes, the TGS will go back and validate when issuing new service tickets whether or not the account is still valid for whatever reason. So that gives us a 20-minute window to do whatever we want. And because we can roll our own TGTs, we can always refresh the age of the TGT. We'll come back to that in a minute, although I think people can see where this is going. Additionally, we focus on creating, with the golden ticket, fake TGTs because you only need the Kerb TGT account to encrypt and sign all the little bits. If we could do, the service tickets look pretty much exactly the same as the TGTs. The problem is that you have to have different keys, and those keys change periodically. Computer accounts automatically rotate, I believe it's every 30 to 45 days. Whereas we talked about previously, the Kerb TGT account never really rolls in a normal environment. So if you recover it, you're good for a very long time. And you can use a TGT to get multiple TGS.
Okay, so let's go technical. So all you need for building your own golden ticket is the Kerb TGT keys. It can be NTLM hash, it can be AES, even DES if you have it. Okay. You also need the SID of the domain. It's not a secret. It's a public data on the domain. You can have it with who am I, PSGet SID from Markusinovich or something like this on the domain name. So with one command, you can copy paste this command. I will not do it in VM. You can have the Kerb TGT key. So this is the RC4 key for Kerb TGT. This is the IS key, and also. With all that, you can create your own golden tickets with this particular command line. This is very easy. You can put the domain name, the domain SID, the keys, the username you want to be, the ID of the username. So 500 is the well-known read of domain administrator, but you can put what you want, and you can put all groups that you want the user can belong. That's your choice, not the KDC, okay? And you can push this data in a file, and you can use the file later in 1 year, 2 years. It will work, okay? So what we will do with this golden ticket? With this golden ticket, I want a golden ticket which is valid 10 years, because I love 10 years. I think it's enough for pen test. A lot of pen test, okay. And with this golden ticket, I want to be administrator. I want to be in domain administrator groups. I want a lot of rights because it's a golden ticket, okay? So in the next demonstration, I will make a golden ticket from nothing for domain administrator. But that's not all. Because we are crazy people, we want to access a remote share when the user is disabled. So in real life, nobody can access to this share. But with a golden ticket, we will create a fake ticket, which in fact is a ticket for the domain controller. It's a normal account which is not disabled this time. And we will push in the group parts of the ticket the ID of the user which is normally disabled. Because of the filter on the SID, we will be able to access to the share, even after 20 minutes. And because we are funky people too, we will create a golden ticket for a user which is not in the domain. It doesn't exist. And with the ID which is not in the domain too. And it will work with domain admin right. Okay? Okay, so they don't exist. So even the user of the ID. So the TGT will only work for 20 minutes. But I hope that all people here can pawn a domain in 20 minutes. Okay? I think it's enough. And even if it's not enough, in 20 minutes you have enough time to obtain many TGS for access remote share, for make PS exec or things like that on the domain controller. And this TGS will be valid 10 hours, so you have time, okay? And even if it's not enough, because you are slow pen tester, maybe, I don't know. Okay, not all, sorry. I will have problems after. You have the Kerberos case, so even after 20 minutes, you can create another golden ticket for another 20 minutes. It's very cool because when you use a bad guy ticket, what is the username in event log? What is the ID in event log? You can search. It doesn't exist. Okay, all of that is crazy, so I will try to make a demonstration about these three particular cases. So again, this time we go back to this machine, but we log off to erase all data. And we go back. I will delete my old file because I'm not a cheater, okay? So again, access denied, no luck. But like I'm a lucky guy, I will copy paste all my command, okay? Yep. Okay. This is a bonus for pen tester. The previous command of Mimikatz for golden ticket push the ticket in a file, but I have included a new command / pass the ticket at the end of the command, which creates the tickets directly in memory, so you can have more time to make exploits. Okay. So at this time, I have a ticket in Mimikatz. Okay, I have a TGT for administrator. I have created only with the Kerberos TGT and TLM hash. So that's pretty cool. And because we are Windows guy, sometime we will try to access Active Directory Center for my remote administration because there is no only share for pentest. Slow. So during this time, I can access admin share again, and I can make administration on my domain because with only the Kerberos TGT hash, which is here about 10 years ago, I'm again domain administrator. But I think it's normal, so let's do funky, okay? This time I will create a fake user, but because we are in demonstration, I make funky data in the ticket. I will use. So even if we are domain administrator for this time, we have a particular share that we cannot access. It's test. Access denied. This account, I want to access an account which is disabled on the inactive directory. Okay? I will show you because I'm not a cheater. Okay, this account is disabled. Maybe you see it because me, I can't see it. But this account is disabled. There is a little mark on it. So normally, I can't use it. So we will log off again because this is Windows. The Kerberos purge command is not very reliable, sorry. So I have access denied again and again. But we will create the golden ticket. The golden ticket for another user. So this time I use server Charlie $ account. This is the DC account. But I have pushed in this ticket the RID of the utilizer account, which is disabled. Okay, this time it's in a file, but that's not a problem. We have the command to pass the ticket with file 2. You already know it. Okay. So this time I am a domain controller or other account. This is not a problem. But I can access a user share with an account which is disabled. And it will work in 20 minutes too, even if the watchdog of Microsoft checks the TGT. Again, we log off. I love logging off. And this time, we will create the bad guy part. So because we are on demonstration, the bad guy will be named Morgan. Yep. But before doing it, I will make a little show for you. I will delete the security part. If I see, sorry, I don't get it. I have only erased the security log for showing you after what is it into. Okay. And on the hack machine, we will create another ticket. So this time, I create a ticket for user named Morgan, which doesn't exist in the domain chocolate, and with an user ID, which is the maximum of the day word. It doesn't exist at all on the domain, but we have groups for domain administrator. Okay, let's use this ticket. It is bad guy. Okay. Okay, so know who we are. Kerberos. So we are Morgan, which is a very bad guy, and he doesn't exist in the domain. But this bad guy can access admin $ again on the domain. And what's the Active Directory I've seen about it? I don't think I will make on my screen because it's very little. And the KDC only sees that Morgan won't access the domain controller, and he have given and he have delivered a TGS to Morgan, which doesn't exist in the domain, and now Morgan can access all data like a domain administrator for 20 minutes. But if he wants, he can regenerate another TGT in 20 minutes. It's very funky. If you want to add JavaScript into the username, you can have a little problem with CM solution. It can be funky. Okay. So sorry, guys. It was the last demonstration. But I'm pretty sure some people here have questions about it. Thank you very much for your attention.
All right, guys, there's a mic here if you have questions for us, and we'll do our best to answer them or deflect them as necessary. Anybody?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah.
So Microsoft will say this is not a broken SSO model, but lots of people.
I'm sorry, I still can't hear you very well.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So Microsoft says this is not a broken SSO model, but basically we're saying it is. Do you believe they're going to fix this, or what's the status of this?
So there's a couple of issues that could make this a little better. The ability to automatically roll the Kerb TGT account and not have it be valid for 10 plus years or whatever. I know there's people that are trying to figure out the best way of doing that at Microsoft right now. And they're also working on coming up with a consistent message on the appropriate steps to take to change the Kerb TGT as part of whatever process you want to use. But the bottom line is that Kerberos, it's one of those was never really designed to do necessarily what it is currently doing. It was designed around lessening authentication traffic that's flying across the wire 20-something years ago, and not necessarily designed for today's modern security sort of thing. And one of the fundamental problems with Kerberos has always been, if you lose the KDC, you're totally hosed. This is just basically taking that to its logical conclusion, being able to create arbitrary users that don't exist and access services as these users. So there's some solutions that can be implemented that are being worked on to try to fix some of this stuff, but unfortunately right now the best advice is don't lose the domain. And that has always sort of been the going advice. Yes, sir?
You read all the keys directly from Elsa's memory at some point, but what about the protection mechanisms that Microsoft implemented in 8.1 and 2012 R2 to prevent that code could just read directly from the Elsa's memory?
All right, I'll let Benjamin answer that one.
I'm not sure I have understood all the question because my English is not very good. But as I have understood, you speak about Windows 8.1 protected users.
Yes.
Yes. In this particular case, when you have the TGT IS key or RC4 key for the domain administrator are not in memory. Your TK is only valid for 4 hours for all users and 10 hours for the domain administrator. After 4 hours, you must retype your password to obtain a new key, to obtain a new TGT. But Microsoft errors key on this particular case. But that's not all the point because the errors key, but not the TGT. We can install the TGT even for protected users.
I was just looking on the offensive security website, and they were talking about how this is embedded, 1.0 is embedded in Metasploit. But it actually goes on talking about how you have the 2.0 packages, which you were demoing. Are you going to be putting the 2.0 package in Metasploit, making it available?
I'm fairly confident at some point that's going to happen. I think it's just one of those things that we're not the ones that maintain that particular piece of things. And so the functionality that everyone was using is primarily based off the 1.0, but I believe very soon they'll probably get that updated to a more recent version.
Hi, back to your previous answer. When you say do not use domain, do you mean the local accounts are more secure, or you say there is another protocol which is more secure than Kerberos?
No, the problem is that we're sort of reaching a point where Kerberos is really showing its age. How many things in your daily job are 20 years old and still functioning properly? So unfortunately, you have to dance with the girl you came with. So you're invested, you have a domain, you have thousands of users, you've been doing it this way. If you decide tomorrow you want to do something else, that's not something, you can't just stop doing it. Right now, this is the best thing out there, and the priority should be preventing people from being able to dump the hashes in the first place while other mitigations and techniques are being developed. Unfortunately, today, you're kind of screwed. If you have an FG dump from 10 years ago, you're potentially screwed. If you had a pen test from 10 years ago where they dumped the hashes, that Kerb TGT account could still be live. So there's, it's unfortunate that that's where we are right now, but it is what it is.
Thanks.
No problem.
Have you done any experiments with protected process light for protecting LSAS memory reading? And if so, does it make any difference at all? Or
I don't understand.
Okay, could you
protected
repeat?
process light.
Slowly, just maybe slowly for me.
Yeah, sorry, it's called protected process light. It's something with Windows 8.1. And if you have secure boot turned on, it will protect the process a little bit better.
Yes, about protected process, we don't have time to present it, but I have also created a driver in Mimikatz, and this particular driver can patch the structure of the process to unprotect the process.
Hi, thank you for a great presentation and for the great tool as well. But I would like to expand on a previous question about using local administrators or just minimizing the presence of those admin accounts on endpoints or other machines. So there will be a presentation later about it, about the exposure to pass the hash. But in generally, if all the administrative tasks or the majority of administrative tasks are done with local accounts or with segmented or zoned accounts, will this be an effective mitigation in your opinion?
A lot of that is just going to come down to so many auxiliary things. For example, do you have a backup of one of your domain controllers sitting on a hard drive somewhere that is unprotected? Are the backup tapes encrypted? Like I said, is there a pen test report from 10 years ago that shows that they demonstrated where they dumped the hashes, where they didn't obscure the Kerb TGT hash because they didn't know what to do with it? Segmenting is always good. There's always best business practices to raise the bar. Monitoring for access, monitoring the event log, central log collection, all the stuff you're supposed to be doing anyway. Minimizing exposure to the administrative functions with local administrators, minimizing the number of domain admins. You don't have to have everybody in the domain admins group or enterprise admins group, or even a group that has something close to those level of rights. All of that stuff is a good best business practice to try to minimize the effect. But ultimately, if you lose the KDC, you're toast. So everything should be focused on trying not to lose the KDC. So, and like I said, you have to think about backups, you have to think about file shares, you have to think about how you manage passwords in the system. There's so many vectors that a pen tester can use, or an actual adversary can use to gain access.
Thank you.
I believe you read keys from memory at the client side at some point. Could you clarify?
Could you speak a little closer? There you go.
Yeah, you read keys from memory on the client side. Could you clarify when these keys are present? What preconditions there are?
On the client side, the keys are only present in LSISS process. In fact, Microsoft store a lot of data in each provider for their own usage. By example, for NTLM hash, it is stored by MSV 10 DLL. For Kerberos provider, they store AES key, DES key, RC4 key, event password sometimes in clear, and PIN code of smart card. So there is a lot of key in Kerberos provider.
So pretty much always on every client.
Excuse me.
Pretty much always on every client. Is that what you're saying?
He's asking if there's pretty much always something in memory that else has key related. So on the client side, is there always something?
Oh, not always. In the case of protected user, you only find TGT and TGS, and sometimes PIN code.
Thanks.
Have you looked at the implications of your attacks in an environment where a domain is set up with a forest with multiple domains, and you could ask for TGT that will grant you valid accesses to other domains in that forest using the trusts?
I know it's something that we've talked about. I have not actually played with it, but I believe he has.
Just a little bit. It depends on the relationship, but yes, if you have a golden ticket on a domain and this domain is trusted in other domains, the golden ticket can be used to obtain another TGT in other domain and sometimes other TGS.
Okay. But this feature is not yet implemented in Mimikatz, I guess? The feature is not yet implemented in Mimikatz.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Sorry, the feature is not yet implemented in Mimikatz.
Oh. The golden ticket, you can put what you want inside. So if you make a golden ticket to access an administrator on the root forest, you can use this golden ticket. Normally in Windows, when you access to a share in other domain, this is the Kerberos client of Windows that we will ask other TGT on other tickets. I don't have to code it.
Okay, so it's just a matter of inputting the right domain IDs when you request your ticket.
Right, you'll have to put the right domain, you'll have to put the right domain SID and all of that, and then when you create the new TGT for that, you can do it that way. Or if you're in like the parent, you can create a TGT for that, and then Microsoft or the Kerberos client will automatically get additional tickets depending on the trust level.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
Don't be shy. Seriously.
All right, well, I guess that's a wrap. So we'll be around.